Welcome to the Oregon Friendly Driver Program. This material and this program has been brought to you today by the Oregon Department of Transportation, and the material that you're going to be viewing today was developed by a partnership of the Street Trust, Safe Lane Transportation Coalition, and Commute Options. My name is Whitney Bennett. I work for Commute Options, and I'm the Safe Routes to School coordinator that helps to make sure that all users are interacting with our roadways in a friendly manner, as you're going to learn more about today. What we're going to cover in this course is going to be why crashes happen, what is and is not friendly, infrastructure, common crashes, and how to avoid them. So you're going to hear this delivered from the viewpoint of you as the driver and as a person and a human being. And we're going to talk about that the other users that we do see in our street networks are people walking, people biking, and then there's you as a person driving. We are all people, and we want to make sure that there's an understanding that when there is a crash with a user, that is a crash with a human being. And so when you understand it from that level, it gives us a lot more connection. So we'll start into why crashes happen. And before I dive into what you're seeing here for the leading cause of crashes, I'm just going to highlight this term that you're going to see throughout, which is crashes, and why we do not use the word accident when we're talking about an incident between people driving, people biking, and people walking. So just to define what an accident is, it's an unforeseen and unplanned event or circumstance. Traffic crashes are due to human error, whether it's because of impaired driving, distracted driving, or for whatever the reason is, there might be a lack of attention. So a crash from distracted driving, it's not an unforeseen experience because we are well aware of the repercussions from that kind of behavior. The action's known to cause crash, and it's known to cause death. That said, the end result of these actions is foreseeable and preventable, so it is not an accident, it is a crash. So the leading causes of crashes between cars and bikes are listed here, and you can see all the different reasons in your slide, but note that it's often 50-50 in terms of who is at cause. We talk a lot more about the interaction between people driving and people on bikes because of the interface that they do share, because we will see bikes on the roads. There are also plenty of crashes between people driving and people walking, and we will go into that, but it weighs in heavy into this material, and you're gonna learn a lot about how to avoid some of these common crashes. And ultimately, the point being, it's not important as a friendly driver who is at fault. It's important that we can avoid these kind of incidences whenever possible. So some things to learn about what is and is not friendly as a friendly driver. In the state of Oregon, there's actually a law that defines what a vulnerable user is and how they should be recognized when they're sharing the roadway. So a vulnerable user is anybody that's not going to be containerized in a vehicle or with thousands of pounds of metal. And some examples are people walking, people riding a horse, people on tractors, and then you can see a person on a bike or a skateboard or roller skates or Heelys or a scooter. Also utility workers or anybody that might be having to engage on the roadway for work purposes. So you can kind of think about maybe when you've actually seen vulnerable users present and it's kind of maybe grabbed your awareness. So as a friendly driver, we want to be aware of who might be out there and who we're sharing the roadways with. We're gonna talk a little bit about people on bikes. A person on a bike has almost all the same rules it needs to follow when it is on and sharing the road with a person driving. They are considered vehicles when they're sharing the road. There are certain exceptions to that. But the main point of calling this out is to recognize that you are sharing the road with a person on a bike, and that people can be on bikes for various reasons. There are the people that are out exercising. There are plenty of people on bicycles as well that are commuting, just like you might be. And so there is a understanding from all sides that they have the right to be there, and that they need to be recognized and watched out for in certain cases. So a little thinking time for you, just to take a look at this graphic, and I'll tell you what we're looking at. And I wanted you just to give a guess on whether or not this is a friendly action or a unfriendly. So we're talking about this vehicle that's turning left. I want you to notice the person on the bike lane, but going the opposite direction. The person in the vehicle turning, my question to you to think about for about 2 seconds is this friendly or is this not? So as a friendly driver, it would be not friendly to mow over the person on the bike. Granted, the person on the bike is going the wrong direction in the bike lane, and it is required by the Oregon law that they need to be following the same rules on the roadway as vehicles. So even though the person on the bike is in the wrong, it doesn't change the repercussions of this incident and smashing the person on the bike. So to be an Oregon friendly driver, you're going to make sure there's no people on bikes or people walking when you're taking turns, and we'll show some more examples of where to look and what you might need to expect at various types of intersections. Some other details of what you might be able to notice people on bikes, or what might be missing, and just to become more aware. So the law does require that people on bikes should have appropriate lighting in times when visibility is not 100%. So that could be at times when it could be a half an hour before the sunrise, it could be half an hour after the sunset, but it also could be when it's very dark because of clouds. It could be when there's rain or snow or any kind of altered conditions where visibility is not great. But a person on a bike sometimes does not always remember to have their lights. They may not have them on. So as a friendly driver, it is your responsibility to pay extra attention to bike lanes and to at intersections and sidewalks when you're approaching them if visibility is not great. And just to highlight here in this slide, it is required that a person on a bike has a front white light that lights up and visible from 500 feet, and a rear reflector that is visible from 600 feet. That rear reflector does not have to actually light up. So we're going to talk a little bit about something called fall distance, and it is the required amount of space that you need to give a person on a bike if you plan on passing them. So as in this example, this is a roadway of 30 miles per hour. So in a roadway that's 30 miles per hour or faster, you are required to give fall distance to pass. Fall distance equates to the height of that person on the bike if they were to fall. And so as a person driving, you would need to do some quick math and figure out how much space is required, or how much space would equate to that fall distance. The other thing this graphic highlights is the right that you have to pass the center line and go into the opposite lane of traffic to pass the person on a bike, as long as there is no other vehicles coming the opposite direction. If there are vehicles, you stay behind the bike and you wait until that lane is clear so you can safely pass. When speeds are under 35 miles per hour, a good distance is at least 3 feet when you're passing a person on a bike. But as a friendly driver, you want to give as much space as possible. Here's another example to kind of engage you in what we're presenting. I want you to take a look at this photograph, and I'm highlighting there is a person on a bike in the bike lane, and we have a person driving, passing the person on the bike. Just to think about for a moment, would this be a friendly passing or not? If you agreed friendly, you're correct. This is a safe amount of space, plenty of fall space. And the other thing I like to point out when we're looking at this photo is that that's a relatively large vehicle. So something that does happen sometimes with people on bikes with large vehicles, especially big trucks, there's something that's called wind blasting, and that can knock a person on a bike over, even if you give them enough space. So if you are driving a very large vehicle, you would need to take that into consideration and slow down, give enough space, be that friendly driver that really is considerate to the more vulnerable user that's in the bike lane or that's in that hugging that left side. In the state of Oregon, riding on the sidewalk is legal. You can see these two little kids making their way on the sidewalk approaching a driveway. So one thing to keep in mind as a friendly driver, if you're ever pulling out of a driveway or approaching an intersection and there are people riding their bicycles on the sidewalk, you need to be aware of them, especially if you're pulling out of a driveway. And you always want to wait and let them clear the space before you move, and give them that right away as they're using the sidewalk. A person riding a bike on the sidewalk is supposed to be going the speed of a pedestrian, which is approximately 3 miles per hour. So pretty slow, giving you enough time to react if you do see a person on the sidewalk. Side note here, it is not legal everywhere for people on bicycles to be on sidewalks, specifically in downtown environments or more urban environments. Often they want to keep people on bikes not on the sidewalk and keep that for people walking. And that normally is shown by signage and can vary within different areas. And what we're looking at here is the new Stop as Yield law. So this is a recent law that has come on the books that talks about how a person on a bike can use a stop sign. And as a person driving, it's good to be aware of this so that you know what to expect. So a person on a bike is not required to stop completely at a stop sign as long as there's no other vehicles in the intersection or stop at the intersection. A person on a bike still does have to stop if there are other people driving or other users in the intersection or stopped at the intersection, and a person on a bike does have to stop at a solid red light. The benefits of this law to allow for a slow rolling stop just keeps people on bicycles moving and helps with the flow of traffic and keeps them safer so that they don't end up jamming up in an intersection.
Hand signals. Hand signals are what you as a person driving can look for from a person on a bike to indicate whether they are going to turn, what direction they're going to turn, and if they're going to stop. Note that a person on a bike is not always able to use a hand signal for various reasons, whether maybe in some instances they may not feel comfortable pulling one hand off the handlebars, or if the conditions on the roadway make it unsafe, if it is icy or rainy, or they're climbing up a hill or going down a hill, they may not feel comfortable pulling a hand off to indicate a signal. And so as a friendly driver, it's your responsibility to look for other indications of communication messaging from a person on a bike. And that may look like shoulder checking to see if there is any other vehicles. It may be eye contact coming from the person on the bike. It could be verbal cues or a variety of other ways that they can be using body language to indicate that they're going to change where they are on the roadway. So briefly, what you're looking at is the right-hand hand signal starting there on the left-hand side, where you see that hand bent at the elbow indicating a right-hand turn. And quite often, there'll be a point happening from that hand, so indicate that that is a right-hand turn even more clearly. You can also use a right alternative, or you may also see a right alternative signal, which is a clear pointing of the direction where the person on the bike will be turning. Then there is the left signal, and less often used but very great for communicating to people driving is the stop signal.
We're going to talk a little bit about a common crash that is a fear of a lot of people that are on bikes that as a friendly driver you can avoid with a simple trick. And I'll show that to you very soon. There's something called doored, being doored. And as a person on a bike, it's not a very fun thing to see. As you can see, person driving, opening the door, not looking behind, and taking out any user that might be wheeling or rolling or strolling or jogging by, and then send them flying. Very uncomfortable, can be very messy. We would like to avoid those. So there's a technique, it's called the Dutch reach. And if you have some space and you want to wiggle your right hand and find out where your right is, imagine you're sitting in your driver's side door or your driver's side seat, and you're going to open the door. With that right hand is what you're going to use to open the door. And then you'll notice that your view shed increases when you turn, and you'd be able to glimpse a little bit more if there's a person on a bike coming. So highly recommended. And as a friendly driver, you have this now as a tool that will become your habit.